Every morning, even before your eyes fully open to the world, there exists a sacred instant when reality has not yet taken shape. It is a moment so silent, so pure, so malleable, that few realize the power held within it. In this interval between sleep and wakefulness, you are not yet the you conditioned by yesterday's fears, nor the you chasing after external signs, validations, and guarantees. You are simply consciousness, and that is all that has ever been necessary. It is at this exact point that creation begins, and that is why I say, make this moment your altar. When you awaken without intention, the world immediately tries to claim your mind. The bills, the messages, the memories of failures, the expectations of others. All of it rushes in like thieves attempting to occupy your home before you do. But when you awaken with awareness, before any automatic thought, something changes. You take the throne. You remember that you are the creator, not a creature of circumstances. And once this remembrance ignites, you cease being someone who asks and become someone who commands. Not because you are arrogant, but because you finally understand that nothing exists outside of you that was not first permitted within. The material world is slow, heavy, belated. It always arrives afterward. It is merely a delayed messenger bringing news of what you have already decreed internally. Therefore, every morning, before any trace of the old you awakens, enter into silence and deliberately choose the state you wish to inhabit. Not as one who tries to convince themselves, but as one who remembers a forgotten truth. Not as one who pleads for change, but as one who affirms what is already theirs by spiritual inheritance, the ability to assume and see manifested. This morning moment is neither a mystic ritual nor a sophisticated technique. It is a daily declaration of authority. It is you telling life, I decide who I am before the world tries to tell me. It is you taking possession of your desired state before any appearance tries to contradict it. And the sooner you do this, the deeper the assumption penetrates and the more quickly the day bends to the consciousness you have chosen to sustain. That is why I say, with firmness and simplicity, every morning, even before your feet touch the floor, turn inward and assume the desired outcome as if it were a memory. Because in that instant, you are closest to the field where everything is born, and whoever masters that moment masters their reality. It's curious how the mind, so accustomed to chasing things, tries to complicate what is simple. When I say assume the outcome, many look for techniques, intense emotions, celestial signs, external confirmations. But assuming the outcome doesn't require effort, it requires surrender. It means allowing yourself to enter the feeling that what you desire has already happened, just as you recall something experienced in the past. The human mind perfectly understands what it means to remember. Simply apply the same principle to the desired future, and it ceases to be future and becomes an internal present. There is no tension in this, no struggle, no search. There is only acceptance. When you mentally place yourself in the completed result, something profound happens. Anxiety loses its power because it only exists when you believe you are still far from what you want. Fear disappears because it is born only of doubt. The need to control everything dissolves because one who already possesses does not try to control the path to possession. The feeling is one of relief, stability, and homecoming. It's like entering your home after a long day. Nothing needs to be proven. Nothing needs to be conquered. You simply are there. This is the state that creates. But the most common mistake is trying to feel the outcome as if performing, pretending, or trying to produce artificial emotion. There is no need for this. Imagination does not respond to forced emotional intensity. It responds to naturalness. The final state should feel familiar, not dramatic. It should feel like something you accept with tranquility, not something you try to grasp. If you try, it's because you believe you don't have it. And everything in your life responds to what you believe you possess internally. Entering the outcome is also an act of courage because it means abandoning the old story. It means stopping mentally revisiting failures, losses, rejections, and limitations. It's like closing a familiar book to open a new one, still with unwritten pages. Most people don't assume the outcome because they fear letting go of the past. But the past has no authority over those who assume a new state. Only those who continue carrying their old scenes keep their lives stuck with the same results. Therefore, when you wake up and close your eyes for an instant to inhabit the outcome, do so with simplicity. See yourself living exactly what you desire, not as someone hoping it will happen, but as someone who has already lived it. Walk through the internal scene naturally. Touch the details, breathe in the atmosphere. See yourself interacting as someone whose life has already changed. And above all, feel at peace with it. Without urgency, without haste, without fear of fantasizing. Imagination is the cradle of reality. What you accept internally as completed, sooner or later, crystallizes externally. When you truly assume the outcome, the world loses its ability to intimidate you. It may exhibit delays, resistance, silence, but none of that matters, because it is already decided within you, and that which is held firmly in consciousness becomes inevitable. The interesting thing is that abandoning the old identity is not an intellectual process, but an internal, silent act, almost invisible to the outside world. Most people wake up and, without realizing it, put on the same self from yesterday. The self that fears the future, the self that expects bad news, the self that believes itself to be limited, the self that repeats stories of failure. This identity, repeated day after day, becomes a comfortable cage. But still, it is a cage, and no truly new manifestation can flourish in someone who insists on carrying the old self with them. When you maintain the same identity, you also maintain the same reactions, the same thoughts, the same choices, and, inevitably, the same results. It is impossible to experience something different while being the same person who created the past. Therefore, abandoning the old self is as essential as assuming the outcome. You cannot inhabit a high state while carrying a low consciousness. It's like trying to ignite a new flame while carefully protecting the ashes. The flame is only born when you let go of what no longer burns. The old identity will always try to survive. It will whisper that you are not capable, that you have failed before, that changes are slow, that life doesn't work that way. It will try to convince you that it is safer to repeat yourself than to reinvent yourself. But the truth is that every limited thought that arises is merely an echo of what you were, not of what you are capable of being. Do not fight these thoughts. Simply recognize this belongs to the old self. By doing so, you strip them of their power because you no longer identify with them. Abandoning the old identity does not mean denying your history, but ceasing to use it as a foundation. It means looking inward every morning and deliberately choosing to be someone different. Someone who thinks differently, someone who reacts differently, someone who believes in greater possibilities. Real change never comes from outside. It comes when you refuse to continue playing the same role. And the most powerful realization is that this change of identity requires no effort. It merely requires decision. When you decide that you are no longer the self that fears, the self that expects little from life, the self that limits itself, a new consciousness begins to settle in. And when consciousness shifts, everything around it shifts with it. Circumstances that once seemed solid begin to dissolve. Paths that seemed closed begin to open. The world reorganizes not because you struggled to change it, but because you changed what it was reflecting. And that is why every morning upon waking, you should ask yourself, who am I choosing to be today? If the answer is still an old, tired, or limited version, abandon it immediately. And choose, with silent conviction, an identity aligned with the outcome you have already assumed. Life can only give you what matches who you decide to be. Commanding in silence is an art few understand, because most have been taught to ask. From an early age, we learn to look outward, to wait for something or someone to decide for us, to plead for changes like one trying to convince a rigid and indifferent world. But in the universe of consciousness, asking is declaring lack. It is affirming that you do not possess, are not, have not achieved. And what you declare, consciously or not, becomes your experience. Commanding, on the other hand, is an internal gesture of absolute possession. It has no noise. It has no spectacle. It has no words repeated like desperate mantras. To command is not to speak, it is to assume. It is to have the certainty that what you desire is already established within you, and that the world sooner or later will be obliged to reflect this internal truth. When you command in silence, your vibration becomes stable, firm, inevitable. And it is this stability that gives form to reality. The most common mistake is to think that commanding means controlling or forcing external events. No, you are not commanding people, events, or circumstances. You are commanding your inner state. And when the state changes, everything outside bows. The command is internal, the obedience is external. When you silently tell yourself, "I am that," you are decreeing the outcome. You are ending all doubt, eliminating the gap between desire and fulfillment. You don't need to repeat it 1,000 times. You don't need to look for any signs. A single assumption, fully embraced, already contains the seed of everything that will manifest. But to command, you need to trust internal reality more than external reality. The material world is slow, lazy, reactive. It always arrives late. It always bows to what you have already accepted within yourself. When you observe life with trained eyes, you realize that everything that appears is just an old photograph of your past consciousness. Do not fight against it. Do not argue with appearances. Command within and let the outside adjust. And that is why I say, do not tell your desires to the world. Do not seek external approval. Do not expect applause or validation. All of that belongs to the realm of shadows. True creation happens in silence, in the space where only you know the intention. It is there within that you say it is done. And when it is done within, nothing, absolutely nothing, can prevent the world from following that command. Finally, remember that commanding is not a grandiose act. It is simple, natural, gentle. Spiritual authority does not shout, it whispers with firmness. It says, "I am," and the universe responds. Sustaining the state throughout the day is where most fail, not because they don't know how to imagine, but because they allow themselves to be hypnotized by appearances. It's easy to assume the outcome in the morning, when all is quiet and the world has not yet presented its old problems. It's difficult to remain faithful to the desired state when life starts to prod. Bills arriving, people doubting, delays, unforeseen events, silences, absence of signs. This is where many abandon the state and return to the old self, like someone who plants a seed in the morning and unearths it in the afternoon to see if it's working. Nothing grows that way. Sustaining the state does not mean ignoring reality, but interpreting everything from your new identity. If something happens that seems to contradict what you have assumed, do not react with despair or doubt. Simply say internally, "This belongs to the old state, not to what I have chosen now." This simple distinction prevents you from identifying with the old version of yourself and keeps the seed you planted upon waking alive. And you need to understand, life will test your loyalty. Not because it wants to punish you, but because that is how consciousness consolidates. When you assume a new state, everything that doesn't align with it begins to disintegrate. And in this process, appearances may seem confusing. It might seem that nothing is changing, or that things have even gotten worse. But this is merely the old scenario crumbling. The wind grows stronger before a change of season. Maintaining the state is a constant choice. It means observing every thought that tries to drag you back to fear, and, upon recognizing it, not accepting it as your own. It means refusing to mentally repeat the same stories of scarcity, rejection, or impossibility. It means acting, responding, and behaving as someone who already lives in the outcome. When you act from the desired state, even if the world has not yet adjusted, you are strengthening the invisible bridge that will lead you precisely to the assumed result. And the most powerful realization is that sustaining the state does not require emotional effort. You don't need to feel euphoria, nor exaggerated gratitude, nor endless visualizations. Sustaining the state is simple. It is maintaining your inner position like one gently holding something they already possess. It is remembering who you decided to be upon waking and not abandoning that decision just because the day presented a misplaced shadow. Ultimately, everything comes down to fidelity, not to the world, but to yourself, to the state you have chosen, to the outcome you have assumed. When you remain faithful to this, even in the face of silence, delay, or contrary appearances, something inevitable happens. The external world bows. It always yields, it always changes, it always obeys, because nothing is more powerful than a consciousness that refuses to abandon the state it assumed at dawn. Acting as if you have already received is the point where internal creation begins to touch the physical world. It is not theater, it is not pretense, it is not trying to appear confident. It is coherence. When you assume a true inner state, it inevitably begins to overflow into your attitudes, your choices, your tone of voice, your posture, your way of seeing the world. Action does not create the state, it merely confirms what you have already decided to be. And this silent confirmation is one of the most transformative forces of human consciousness. Most people act expecting to see evidence first. They want signs, opportunities, open doors, answers, material blessings. But this is walking like a spiritual beggar, always reacting to the world, always waiting for something external to finally move. Those who understand the law do the opposite. They act from the completed state. They act as someone who already lives what they desire, not because they are trying to deceive the universe, but because that is now their identity. If you truly believe you already have it, your attitude inevitably changes. Coherent action is gentle. It is not forced. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, not even to yourself. When the state is true, your attitudes become more selective, firmer, more intelligent. You speak differently. You make different decisions. You move away from situations that do not align with what you have assumed. You say no with more tranquility. You say yes with more certainty. All of this happens naturally because you are living from internal reality, not trying to achieve it. And here is the detail few perceive. Acting as if you have already received does not mean changing everything overnight. It means changing small responses that emerge from the new state. It means interpreting every event as someone who is already in the outcome. If something goes wrong, you don't despair. If something is delayed, you don't presume failure. If something seems impossible, you don't abandon the internal scene. One who has already received does not fight, does not beg, does not run. They simply walk with firmness. But this is also where many stumble. They want to act as if they have already received, but they continue thinking as if they are still waiting. This internal dissonance prevents manifestation. Actions only have power when they flow from a stabilized state. That is why the command must come before the action. First, you assume the outcome, then you sustain the outcome, and only then do you act as if you are already there. This sequence is the foundation of conscious creation. Over time, this way of living becomes natural. You stop reacting to the world and begin to respond from your state. And when your actions, thoughts, and feelings align, external reality has no choice but to reorganize itself. It bows, adjusts, moves, because the world is not the cause, it is the consequence. And acting as if you have already received is the final signature, the invisible seal that tells the universe, what I have assumed within is already true. Everything you have heard so far points to a single truth. The life you desire is not out there, hidden, awaiting permission to emerge. It already exists within you, merely waiting for you to assume it. And that is why from today forward, you must cease all asking, all pleading, all anxious waiting. One who asks declares absence, one who assumes declares possession, and reality always obeys the one who possesses within what has not yet expressed itself without. Every morning, before the world tries to regain control over your mind, turn inward and decide who you are. Assume the outcome with simplicity. Abandon the old self with courage, command in silence with authority, sustain the state throughout the day with fidelity, and act as if you have already received with naturalness. These 5 movements are not isolated steps, but expressions of the same principle. You are the cause and the world is the effect. Stop then, waiting for external signs to confirm your internal creation. Stop negotiating with circumstances, measuring your progress by what your eyes see, allowing the old self to raise its weak voice to try and convince you of the impossible. Nothing outside has power over you. Nothing. The only true authority is that which you exercise in your imagination, and it is absolute when sustained with conviction. From this moment, Abandon the habit of asking. Do not beg for change. Do not seek proof. Declare, silently, with firmness, I am. And remain there unwavering until the world bows, because it always bows. Reality does not resist a consciousness that knows who it is. And when you assume your place as creator, all things align, all doors open, all conditions reorganize. Creation is simple, the law is faithful, and the power is already in your hands. Simply command and persist. For centuries, humanity has sought signs in the sky, in cards, in numbers, in the words of others, believing that something outside themselves could announce the arrival of wealth, change, a miracle. But I tell you, nothing external is the true sign. The world is merely a mirror. The authentic sign manifests in the invisible, in the intimate, in the place only you can see. The common person looks around and asks, when will it happen? The awakened person looks within and declares, it has already happened. This is the difference between the servant of matter and the master of creation. Wealth does not emerge as a prize from outside, but as a natural consequence of an inner state assumed with conviction. When you change your state, the entire universe changes its behavior towards you. Life does not respond to what you say you want, but to what you are in silence. This is why some accumulate riches with no apparent effort, while others, despite all their hard work, remain in scarcity. For it is not sweat that creates, but consciousness. Sweat is merely the echo of belief in effort. Consciousness, indeed, is the source of all gold, all prosperity, and all transformation. And there is an instant, subtle, almost imperceptible, when the invisible begins to announce what is about to become visible. It is not a sign in the physical world, but a movement in the soul. It is when fear gives way to calm, when anxiety transforms into silent certainty, when desire ceases to be a plea and becomes anticipated gratitude. It is in this instant that a person is about to cross the veil between what is and what will be. If you learn to recognize these inner signs, you will understand that wealth does not come to you, it emerges from you. Outer gold is merely the reflection of inner gold that has awakened, and the true creator, the one who understands the law, does not chase prosperity. They emanate it. Because what is about to come is already within, and the sign of wealth is not an event, it is an awakening. The first sign that appears before wealth is detachment, but not forced detachment. Rather, it is one that occurs almost naturally, silently, as if something within you simply stopped reacting to fear. It is the moment when scarcity loses its power to affect you. You may still not have everything you desire, but you no longer feel despair over it. And it is at this instant, precisely when it seems you stopped caring, that energy begins to move in your direction. The common person confuses this state with indifference, but in truth it is mastery. You haven't detached from money, you have freed yourself from the idea that it is your master. When the mind calms and the heart no longer vibrates with urgency, you begin to align with what has always existed, invisible abundance. It is as if the universe, seeing that you no longer chase after what is missing, recognizes that you have finally understood the lesson and says, now you are ready to receive. As long as there is attachment, there is fear. And where there is fear, there is resistance. Fear is the denial of faith, and everything you fear becomes what you reinforce. Detachment, therefore, is not giving up. It is deep trust. It is surrendering to the certainty that the invisible has already provided everything even before you asked. Observe the moments when life seems to force you to release control. Sometimes it's a loss, an unexpected change, a delay, an apparent injustice. But all of this is merely the invisible hand of the law, teaching you to abandon dependence on the external world. Because as long as you believe money comes from people, from jobs, from opportunities, it will continue to elude you. But when you understand that it comes from the state you hold within yourself, life begins to serve you in silence. Money then flows effortlessly, like a river that finally finds its natural course. Detachment is the turning point. It is the bridge between the old self who begs and the new self who commands. No wealth is possible without this inner death, the death of anxiety, comparison, haste, the idea that you need to do something to be worthy. When a person lets go of the need to prove, they finally become a creator. They act without fear, speak with power, and rest in peace. This is the sign many ignore, because they expect something visible. But the invisible speaks in silence, and when your heart reaches this silence, know, wealth has already begun to approach. Not because you sought it, but because you finally stopped preventing it from coming. The second sign that arises before wealth is the silence of doubt. It is an almost mystical moment when the mind, previously noisy, begins to quiet down. That inner chatter, the fear of not succeeding, insecurity about the future, the constant need to control everything, begins to lose its grip. It's not that problems disappear, but something within you changes. You stop paying attention to the voice that insists on saying, "This is impossible," and begin to listen to another, softer, firmer one that says it is already done. This is the moment when consciousness takes command and the ego bows before the law. It is the precursor to manifestation, the point where the invisible begins to become matter. While doubt dominates, faith is merely an idea. But when silence takes the place of doubt, faith becomes substance. It is a state of inner quietude, a confidence that needs no proof, because it already recognizes what is to come as inevitable. The person who reaches this point is no longer shaken by delays or troubled by time. They understand that time is merely the distance between the invisible and the visible, and that the more peace there is within them, the faster the bridge forms. The mind, by nature, wants to understand and control, but the spirit merely knows. When knowing replaces wanting, reality begins to obey. This silence is not apathy. It is strength. It is the same kind of silence that precedes a great revelation. When you feel it, it is because something has already been decreed within you. The person rich in spirit does not need to prove their wealth. They simply live as one who already possesses it. And this living in certainty creates the magnetic field that attracts everything corresponding to it. The world then begins to align, even without rational explanations. The impossible rearranges itself, the improbable finds openings, and the invisible becomes tangible. The silence of doubt is the most overlooked sign, because the human mind associates movement with progress. But in the language of creation, it is the opposite. Excessive movement is resistance, silence is power. When you stop asking and begin to rest in certainty, the energy that was once dispersed in fear and anxiety concentrates, and this concentration is what gives form to reality. So, when your mind quiets down and you feel a strange peace, do not fight it. It is the spirit telling you, now it's my turn. This is the true sign that wealth is already coming, when your inner self no longer needs any proof to believe. The third sign that appears before wealth is when desire changes form. Initially, desire is born as lack. A person wants something because they feel they don't have it. They seek money because they believe it's missing, want freedom because they feel trapped, want abundance because they see scarcity around them. But when consciousness begins to awaken, this desire transforms. It ceases to be a cry of need and becomes an expression of one who already possesses. You no longer desire to fill a void, but to expand what you already feel exists within you. This is the point where the energy inverts. Desire stops being a plea and becomes creation. The person still trapped in desiring from lack lives in a cycle of frustration. They visualize, pray, work, but everything they do comes from the fear of not achieving. And fear, being a form of inverted faith, creates exactly what they fear. One who understands the law realizes that true power lies not in wanting, but in knowing. When you know something is yours in the invisible, there is no more effort, only alignment. It is when desire ceases to be a search and becomes an anticipated celebration. You feel gratitude as if you have already received, and this emotion is proof of the birth of a new state. Transformed desire does not cry out. It declares. It does not plead, it affirms. And this inner change is an unmistakable sign that wealth is near. Because the law responds to the predominant feeling, not to words, and when the feeling is one of possession, the universe reorganizes itself to confirm it. The person who understands this begins to act differently. They speak with serenity, decide with firmness, and walk with peace. They no longer desperately seek opportunities because they know they will come naturally. Their vibration becomes a silent command that attracts what belongs to them by divine right. This is the moment when many do not realize that the miracle has already begun. They think nothing has changed because there are no physical signs yet, but the true seed germinates in darkness. Transmuted desire is that seed, invisible yet alive. And when you maintain this feeling of anticipated gratitude, the visible world begins to bend before it. The right people appear, ideas arrive, money flows. All this not because you fought for it, but because you assumed it. Therefore, when your desire ceases to be a need and becomes a certainty, know that you have crossed the boundary between wanting and having. The invisible has already moved. Wealth is not coming. It has already begun to materialize, attracted by the consciousness of one who finally understood. To desire is not to ask, but to recognize what is already yours. The fourth sign that appears before wealth is the invisible movement of circumstances. It is when life begins to silently reorganize itself without you having to lift a finger. People drift away, paths close, opportunities seemingly disappear. And at first, everything seems to be going in the opposite direction to what you imagined. But this is the deception of the mind that has not yet learned to read the signs of the invisible. What appears to be confusion is merely the rearrangement of divine order. The universe is preparing the ground, removing what no longer serves, clearing space for the new state you have assumed. When consciousness changes, reality must reconfigure itself. It is inevitable. The external world is merely a reflection of the inner structure. Therefore, when you begin to sustain the state of wealth, life responds, not with immediate applause, but with subtle transformations. People who vibrated with scarcity drift away, doors that kept you confined close, routines that kept you small break apart. It is the old crumbling so that the new can be born. And if you understand this law, you will not be alarmed by the apparent chaos. Chaos is merely the birth of new reality. Many at this point give up. They interpret the changes as a sign of failure. They say nothing is working. But one who sees with the eyes of the spirit understands that the movement has already begun. The invisible is organizing the elements, attracting people, circumstances, and events that vibrate at the same frequency as your new state. Matter, obedient to consciousness, bows before what you are internally. It is the universal principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. This invisible movement is the response to your silent decree. When you assume a new state, energy propagates in directions you cannot see. Perhaps a casual encounter, an idea in the dead of night, an opportunity arising from a seemingly trivial conversation. None of this is chance. It is the law responding. Every detail is a piece of the same design. Wealth does not enter your life through luck, but through alignment. Therefore, when everything begins to change, remain calm. Do not resist. Do not try to return to the old. Just observe and trust. The invisible is acting with mathematical precision. Life never misses its timing. It is people who despair too soon. The sign that wealth is near is not stability. It is movement. It is the wind changing direction. And when everything around you begins to move, know, what was invisible is becoming visible. Gold is emerging from the land of the invisible, and it comes in silence, but it comes with power. The fifth sign that appears before wealth is surrender. The instant when you finally stop fighting, controlling, trying to understand how things will happen. It is when your soul, tired of resisting, simply rests in certainty. This surrender is not giving up. It is faith in its purest form. It is when you understand deeply and almost unshakably that everything you desired has already been created in the invisible and that no human force can prevent its arrival. The common person calls this leaving it in God's hands. But the conscious creator understands. It is aligning with the law and allowing it to operate without interference. Up to this point, the mind tries to help, calculate, predict. But there comes a moment when you realize that the greatest obstacle is not the world. It is your own effort to try and control it. Surrender is the abandonment of the struggle, and the total acceptance of the truth. The invisible is more real than the visible. When you reach this state, there is such a profound peace that it can be perplexing. You no longer feel haste, nor fear, nor the weight of waiting. It is as if everything has already been resolved, because, in truth, it has. The invisible merely awaits the necessary time to manifest in form. At this point, the energy stabilizes, the inner creator falls silent, and the universe responds. Opportunities begin to arise naturally, paths open effortlessly, and what once seemed distant approaches like an old acquaintance. This happens because resistance has disappeared. Faith has become so solid that reality has no choice but to obey. When a person rests in certainty, the material world bows before them. This surrender is the final point of the process. It is the instant when the seeker becomes a master. You no longer pray to receive, but to give thanks. You no longer imagine how it will be, because you already feel that it is. And this feeling is the vibrational signature of wealth. The invisible recognizes your command and hastens to respond. Nothing more needs to be done, only sustained. When you reach this state, there will be no doubt, no anxiety, no searching. There will be only a silent tranquility, accompanied by small, daily confirmations, encounters, coincidences, subtle movements, that will show you that the manifestation is already underway. This is the last sign before wealth. When your heart quiets and your mind rests, it is because the invisible has already been activated. The spiritual gold you assumed in thought begins to take form in matter. And then, without effort, without struggle, without noise, wealth appears, like something that was always there, just waiting for the moment you stopped doubting to be able to exist. Everything you have seen so far is not spiritual coincidence or poetic metaphor. These are immutable laws. Wealth, like all creation, is born in the invisible, grows in consciousness, and only then flourishes in the physical world. The error of the common person is to seek the reflection in the mirror before smiling. They want to see first and then believe, but one who understands the law knows that one must believe first and then see. Everything that appears in your life is merely the projection of the state you hold within yourself, and no external effort can change what has not yet been transformed internally. Therefore, do not seek signs outside yourself. The true sign lies in silence, in detachment, in the calm that replaces anxiety, in desire that becomes certainty, in circumstances that move, and in the surrender that ends all struggle. These are the secret announcements of approaching abundance. When you recognize them, do not hesitate. Stop begging for external changes and begin to command, in silence, that your reality bend to the state you have assumed, not with words, but with conviction. Life does not respond to what you ask, it obeys what you are. If you are wealth in consciousness, matter will bend to that truth. If you are faith, the impossible becomes inevitable. And if you are certainty, reality itself hastens to serve you. Abundance is not conquered. It is allowed. It has always been present, waiting for you to stop doubting. So I tell you, live now as one who already is. Think, speak, walk, and breathe as one who already possesses. Do not ask, declare. Do not wait, accept. The gold you seek is buried within your own being, and it only needs a silent gesture to emerge. From today forward, may you no longer look at the world as a spiritual beggar, but as the legitimate heir of creation. Because everything you see, touch, and experience is merely the shadow of what you already are. And when you remember this, wealth will no longer need to come. It will simply be. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you isn't common advice. It's a key. If you hold this key for just 2 minutes, something will begin to shift in your life in a way that the logical mind cannot explain. Money will appear as if from nowhere. But make no mistake, this isn't about tricks, cheap magic, or stage illusions. I'm talking about the oldest, firmest, and most relentless law there is. Everything you see in the external world is merely a reflection of what you hold within yourself. The world out there is like a delayed mirror. It creates nothing. It merely returns the image you silently project. Your bank account, your debts, your limitations, All of these are just the echo of past states you accepted and nurtured. But just as a shadow changes when you shift the light's position, your entire reality begins to change when you dare to alter the state you inhabit within. The mistake most people make is to beg for external signs, to wait for something to happen first before they believe. That is the prison of illusion. If you wish to see money flow, you cannot kneel before appearances. You must assume, even without proof, that you are already supplied, already rich, already abundant. Because the law doesn't respond to what you ask for in desperation, but to what you accept with conviction. That's why I tell you, there's no need for more years of blind effort, of directionless striving. 2 minutes of focused awareness, of firmly sustained imagination, can move more wealth into your life than decades of struggle. It's not sweat that opens doors, but the state you carry in the silence of your heart. And if you dare to apply what I'm about to reveal, your financial reality will be forced to bend before the new state you decide to assume. Nothing you see outside happens by chance. Every detail of your financial life, every opportunity that has come to you, every difficulty that still seems to persist, all of this has an invisible root. This root isn't in the market, it isn't in the economy, it isn't in the salary you receive, nor in the government that governs the country. The root is within you. The inner state you assume, consciously or unconsciously, is the true creator of everything that appears on the stage of your existence. The mistake almost everyone makes is to think that things happen in the world first, and then they feel a certain way. They wait for money to arrive to then feel prosperous. They wait for the bill to be paid to then feel relieved. They wait for a door to open to then feel confident. But this order is the great trap. If you wait for the external to change before you change internally, you will spend your entire life stuck in the same cycle, because the reflection never moves before the image. Imagine a mirror. You stand before it and raise your right hand. The reflection obeys. Now try asking the reflection to raise its hand first so that you can then raise yours. No matter how long you wait, this will never happen. The external world works exactly like this. It is the mirror of what you assume to be true within yourself. If you insist on looking at lack and convincing yourself that you are poor, limited, that you cannot succeed, the reflection has no choice but to confirm this image. But if, even in the face of all contrary appearances, you dare to silently affirm, "I am abundance, I am wealth, I am supplied," then the reflection must bow before this new identity. It is at this point that many fail because they still believe that reality has power over them. They look at their empty pockets and say, "How can I believe I am prosperous if I have nothing?" But it is precisely there that the law demands courage. It's not when things are easy that you prove who you are, but when everything seems to deny what you've decided to assume. True faith doesn't wait for proof. Faith creates the proof. You might be in a simple room with nothing of value around, but if within yourself you begin to move as someone who possesses, if you start to carry the demeanor, the feeling, and the confidence of a rich person, this state will become the invisible root that will attract the appropriate conditions to you. This isn't about pretending or deceiving yourself. Pretending is superficial and quickly breaks down in the face of difficulties. It's about inhabiting a state so deeply that the world has no option but to obey. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to tell others what you're doing. You don't need to justify yourself. Everything happens in silence, within. It's like planting a seed. You don't need to show everyone that you put the seed in the soil. Just water it, nourish it, and wait for harvest time. The inner state works exactly like this. Therefore, if today you want to see money appear as if from nowhere, start by changing the image you hold in your heart. Close your eyes and see yourself as someone who already possesses. It doesn't matter what your bank statement says. It doesn't matter what your debt is. It doesn't matter what appearances suggest. What matters is what you now accept as true. If you accept lack, lack will continue. If you accept abundance, abundance will begin to move. It is inevitable. The reflection cannot resist the image you project with conviction. I tell you firmly, the world does not have the power to decide your life. It merely obeys. And if until today you have lived in scarcity, know that this was not punishment, but a consequence of states you accepted without realizing it. Now that you know, the choice is in your hands. Continue accepting what you see and you will repeat the past, or dare to assume within yourself what you wish to see, and you will make the future bow. Everything begins in the invisible. Everything is born within. The inner state is the cause and the world merely the effect. And when you understand this deeply, you will discover that you will never again need to chase money, because it will come to you as a shadow follows the body of one who has decided to walk in the light. 2 minutes of disciplined imagination have more power than years of unconscious effort. Most people spend their entire lives wearing themselves out, running from one place to another, believing that only through sweat and struggle can something change. They work endless hours, sacrifice body and mind, but remain trapped in the same cycle of limitations because they never understood that the true key isn't in what they do, but in the state they place themselves in. It's like rowing against the current. The more force they apply, the more exhausted they become, yet they remain almost in the same place. What they don't realize is that simply changing their inner direction would cause the current itself to start working in their favor. When you dedicate 2 minutes of full attention, 2 minutes of conscious imagination, something moves in dimensions that eyes cannot see. These 2 minutes have the capacity to reprogram your consciousness more deeply than years of physical effort. Because everything you see out there is merely a consequence, while imagination is the cause itself. It is in this brief instant of concentration that you plant the seed that will inevitably sprout in the field of life. Try it now. Close your eyes and don't just think about money, but feel it as if it's already in your hands. See yourself paying your bills with ease, buying without fear, helping those in need. Mentally hear the rustle of banknotes, the click of a pen signing a check, the sound of a cash register drawer opening. Allow these scenes to be so vivid that you almost come to believe they have already happened. If you sustain this experience for just 2 minutes without doubt, without distraction, the external world will begin to organize itself so that this becomes real. The common mistake is to believe that imagination is a waste of time, while physical action is what solves problems. But the truth is that every action first originates from an inner image. If you change the image, you change the quality of your actions. You change the opportunities that arise. You even change the people who cross your path. 2 minutes of focused imagination change the vibration of your being, and this change inevitably attracts new circumstances. Remember, it's not necessary to spend hours in deep meditation or complicated rituals. The law does not demand this. 2 minutes of real concentration done with feeling are worth more than entire days of distraction. And when these 2 minutes become part of your routine, life begins to yield. It's like turning a key in a lock. It's not the force with which you push the door that matters, but the simple act of turning the right key. These 2 minutes are the key. Therefore, do not underestimate the power of a little time invested in what is essential. In just 2 minutes, you can set in motion invisible forces that will radically transform your financial life. While the world rushes in desperation, you, in silence, can achieve what seems impossible. The secret is not in running faster, but in learning to stop, close your eyes, and command reality from the invisible source. What you create in 2 minutes of conviction becomes more solid and inevitable than years of unconscious effort. When you look at the visible world and see accumulated bills, seemingly endless debts, opportunities that don't appear, and doors that close, what you're really seeing isn't reality itself, but merely the reflection of old states you accepted. The world creates nothing, it merely reflects. It has no life of its own, no independent power. It is like a delayed mirror that returns the image you project internally, but always with a slight delay. What you experience today is merely the result of what you assumed yesterday, what you sustained over the past days, months, or years. That is why fighting against circumstances is useless. If you get angry about debts, despair in the face of scarcity, surrender to fear because you see no way out, you are merely reinforcing the image that feeds the reflection. The more energy you give to the problem, the more you crystallize that inner state, and the more the world needs to confirm what you've accepted as truth. The solution is never to fight with the reflection, but to change the image. You don't break a mirror trying to erase the shadow, you change your form before the light. Everything that appears before you is like the harvest of an invisible sowing. It's no use complaining about what has sprouted, nor forcibly tearing off the fruit. The only way is to plant new seeds and wait the natural time for them to manifest. And the seeds are the states you assume. If you plant poverty by declaring yourself lacking, by feeling limited, by mentally repeating "I can't," don't expect to harvest wealth. But if you begin to plant, even in silence, internal affirmations like "I am supplied," "I am abundance," "I am prosperity," this new seed will begin to manifest even if circumstances say otherwise. It is here that many fail because they believe the visible world is the cause. They see a negative bank statement and say, "My life is like this because my balance is in the red." They don't realize it's the opposite. The balance is in the red because they accepted the state of lack beforehand. The world merely obeyed. It's like a shadow cast on the ground. If you want the shadow to move, it's no use pushing it with your hands. You must move your body, and then the shadow, without resistance, will change too. This is the law. The world has no power of its own. It merely reflects your inner identity. If you change from within, the reflection changes inevitably. The problem is that most people try to reverse the order, desperately rushing to force circumstances to change first, and get frustrated when nothing happens. They don't realize they're just fighting with a mirror. It's like asking the reflection to smile before you do. The reflection has no initiative. It can only return what is shown to it. Therefore, when you look outside and don't like what you see, don't despair. Remember, that is not a sentence. It is not definitive. It is not destiny. It is merely a delayed reflection. If you wish to change tomorrow, begin now to assume within yourself the state of what you wish to experience. Sustain it, even if nothing outside confirms it. The reflection may take a little time, but it will come. And when it comes, it will seem as if money appeared out of nowhere, that opportunity fell from the sky, that a miracle happened suddenly. But it wasn't sudden. It was simply the inevitable response of the image you silently projected. Persistence is the most difficult part, and at the same time the most decisive. Because it's not enough to start, it's not enough to imagine once and then give up when the world insists on showing the opposite. The true power lies in persisting. It's easy to get excited for a few minutes, to feel rich amidst a visualization, but when the bill is due, when the bill collector knocks on the door, when reality screams in your face, many immediately abandon the assumed state and return to despair. It is at that instant that most lose the harvest. Doubt is the greatest thief of manifestation. It arrives disguised as logic, whispers that you are deceiving yourself, that it makes no sense to imagine prosperity with empty pockets, that you are wasting time. But doubt is nothing more than a test, a shadow cast to see if you truly believe in what you have assumed. If you yield, if you abandon the state, everything regresses. But if you persist, if you continue to carry the feeling of wealth even when the external denies it, then the invisible bows. The courage to persist is not passive. It's not lifeless waiting. It is an active stance. It is repeating at every moment. It is already mine. I am already supplied. I am already abundant. It is walking with confidence even if you don't see the complete path. It is sustaining within yourself the certainty that the reflection will inevitably change, because the reflection has no will of its own. It cannot resist the image you insist on maintaining. Imagine a farmer who plants a seed and the next day digs up the soil to check if it has sprouted. If he does this every day, he will never see the harvest. The secret lies in planting, watering, and waiting with patience. It is the same with the inner state. If you abandon it every time you look outside, you will never harvest anything. But if you remain firm, even without proof, time will take care of manifesting the invisible. That is why courage is necessary. No strength is needed to begin, anyone can imagine for a few minutes. But courage is needed to keep believing when appearances try to steal your faith. Courage is needed to smile when seeing a negative balance and still declare within yourself, "I am abundance." Courage is needed to look at difficulty and say, "This is merely an old reflection, and I have already assumed the new." This courage is what separates those who speak of the law from those who truly live it. Those who persist discover that reality is malleable, that sooner or later it yields to the pressure of the assumed state. It is like a river that insists on flowing. It can be dammed, it can be slowed, but it can never be stopped. The state you sustain eventually overflows, and the world unable to resist is forced to obey. Therefore, if you wish to see money appear as if from nowhere, don't just start. Persist. Hold firm to the identity of one who already possesses, even if no one believes, even if nothing confirms it, even if everything seems contrary, because the law does not fail, and the world has no choice but to reflect what you insist on being. Persistence is the key that transforms possibility into certainty, and certainty into visible fact. Now that you have heard, you can no longer pretend you don't know. The external world is not the master of your life, it is merely the servant. It obeys the state you silently sustain, and nothing can resist that. You have spent too much time begging for signs, waiting for miracles from outside, believing that change would come by chance or by someone's kindness. But today you understand. The miracle isn't out there, the miracle is you. Assume now firmly the state of one who already possesses. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for the reflection to smile first. You smile. Declare in silence, I am wealth. I am abundance. I am supplied. Sustain this internally like someone holding a flame that nothing can extinguish. 2 minutes of true conviction can open doors that once seemed locked, can dissolve debts, can attract opportunities you never imagined. Ask no more, plead no more, lament no more. Command in silence and certainty, like one who knows they own their own inheritance. The world does not resist one who has discovered their identity. And when you stop chasing, when you stop begging, when you dare to assume, then you will see. Money will appear as if from nowhere. But you will know it wasn't from nowhere. It was from your inner decision. It was from the law obeying the image you sustained. Therefore, go and apply it now. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, now, because everything already is, and it is within you. The rest, inevitably, will bow.